All right, hello, this is Faith Jones coming at you again with another one of my videos. And today I just wanted to have a chit chat with you guys about two issues that I see going on here in the forums. One is the black men that like to berate black women about the feminist movement, something that happened back in the 60s, along with the civil rights movement, or basically the Black Power movement. I want to talk about how black women were caught in between both movements and how we actually were being oppressed by both black men and white women during those movements. And so that is what actually made the birth of the black feminist movement very necessary. Oh, and another thing that I wanted to touch on, let me see if I have it here in my, but this is the history of black women and welfare. And I just wanted to touch on that because a lot of black people, and I'm just seeing that it's mostly a lot of bias within our own group, especially among black men and black women. The bias is mostly heavily on the side of black men, stating that black women are lazy and we're just having babies to get a welfare check. And so I delved into the history of welfare and black women, and there are some pretty interesting things that I found out. But before I do that, first I wanted to go back into another video that I actually did. And it was regarding some CDC statistics on fatherhood stats within the black community, specifically unwed black fathers, fathers who were not married when they had their first child. I tell people all the time that I try to come to my viewers with accurate information. I try to do as much research as I can to bring you accurate information. And this is not just for the benefit of black women, but this is for the benefit of the black community, because there's a lot of people out here running around either with old information or just outright lying. And so I am one of those people that want to be an ambassador of truth. And so in being an ambassador of truth, you have to be a lifelong learner. You have to be willing to do the research. You have to be willing to go a step beyond. So what I did was I emailed the CDC to get clarification on numbers, because the CDC are the people who are putting out these numbers. And the numbers that black men have been washing black women's face over the last 2 decades, by the way, that's 20 years of black men using information from the CDC to stonewall black women and make us believe that we are inferior because of these statistics. So I use these same statistics because these are the statistics, tongue-tied. These are the statistics that our men are using against us. So, I'm not trying to, use it against my men or anything like that, as much as I'm trying to educate our group as to what the actual figures are. So first things first, let me just take a look at my email. And also I want to bring up this chart again. Fatherhood over the last 3 decades. Or 3 decades of fatherhood. And you can look it up, 3 decades of fatherhood. That chart is actually located on the CDC website. The PDF is 3 decades of non-marital first birth Centers for Disease Control. And when you click on that link, it's going to bring up this PDF. And when this PDF comes up, you're going to get this infamous chart that I always bring up. And this chart is the percentage of fathers whose first birth was non-marital and a percentage whose first birth was within a cohabiting union. Now, non-marital is in the blue, and cohabitation is in the light blue down here. And this right here is the area for black men. And as I stated in the last video, 1980 to 1989, they were at 77% non-marital first births. 1990 through 1999, they were at 71% non-marital first births. And from 2000 to 2009, they were at 66% non-marital first births, okay? And so what I did was I contacted Hamilton Brady, okay, from the CDC, and I shot him these links that you see right here of these charts that I had questions about, because I'm a very inquisitive person, and I wanted to make sure that the information was correct. So he told me that the percentages and percent distributions shown in figure 2 and 4 are on two different denominators and are measuring the number of births in two different ways. This is from the CDC. And he said that both are correct. Do you see this here? He's saying that both charts are correct. Okay, and once again, this is Brady Hamilton. Okay, he's CDC, OPHS, NCHS. So he's with all three organizations that deal with these numbers. Okay, so he is a numerator. All right, so now he says both are correct. He said if you want to show the percentage of non-Hispanic black fathers whose first birth was non-marital, then use information in figure 2. And that is the chart that I have been showing. He said, however, I must point out that the data is by decade of first birth, not year. That is 2000 to 2009, not just 2009. Also, only first births are considered. Brady. Okay, so let's go back to that chart. So this is over a 10-year period from 2000 to 2009. 66% of black men were unwed fathers. Okay, and you saw the email. All right, so then I delved a little bit further, and I thank Brady for his information because, it was very helpful in helping me understand that chart even further. And once I get understanding, I like to share that understanding with my viewers. So then I went even further and I contacted Brady again. I believe this was Brady. Let's see here. No, that wasn't it. Hold on. This is like a duplicate of the same email. So I'm going to have to go into my Gmail account and search for it. Because I just received an email from Jose. Here it is. No, that's not. This is something totally different. Hold on. I hope I didn't delete that information because that would have been tragic. And I was just looking at the information, and now that I'm doing the video, the information isn't there. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that just great? All right, it would seem that I can't find it. I don't want to spend too much time in this video looking for this because was it in my primary box? Yeah, that was on the 22nd. Oh gosh darn it. Did I inevitably delete it, or what in the hell? Hmm. Hmm. Okay, I think this is it. Yep, here it is. All right, so this email is from CDC, OPHS, and NCHS, okay? And the person who responded, let's see here, I don't think they left their name. It just says from NCHS, ED, CDC. So this is just directly a response from, oh, here it is, Nugent, Colleen Nugent from the CDC. Okay. And I had put in a query. My question was, I said, I'm a blogger and I'm doing a video vlog about fatherhood statistics in the United States, which I will be highlighting and comparing fatherless homes and non-marital births by race and ethnicity of the father. My question to you is that finding non-marital fatherhood statistics for a single year is proving an extremely difficult task. Can anyone tell me where I can get this information? I did see the chart from the NHCS, and that's the chart that I show you guys all the time. And it's titled 3 Decades of Fatherhood, but those statistics are from a single decade, not a single year. I need 1 full year of data for single fatherhood, and I am particularly interested to know the percentage of African American men who father children out of wedlock within a single year. There is so much information for African American single mothers, but barely any for her male counterpart. Long story short, can someone please tell me the current percentage of African American men who fathered children out of wedlock within a single year? Okay, and so that's what I sent to them, and then this is their response to me. Well, Colleen sent me a response that she was going to forward my information over to a group. It says, please let us know as soon as possible if your group will provide the answer to the inquiry below, or if the inquiry should be referred elsewhere, for example, to a state or local health department, another CDC program, or other federal agency. Specific guidelines on a referral and contact information would be appreciated. This query is being escalated because CDC info does not have the information. Now, do you see where it says, if you guys can't see it because this writing is kind of grayed out, just go ahead and blow up the computer screen using the full screen tab. But it says right here, this inquiry is being escalated because CDC info does not have the information. So CDC does not have information on single fathers within a single year. So any black man running up to you at this point in time hollering, oh, we know exactly what the number is, they're lying. There is no information regarding single fatherhood stats within a single year at all whatsoever. CDC even says they don't have the information. Okay, and she goes on to say, programs are asked to reply within 3 business days of receipt of this escalation. If there is a delay, please let us know when to expect the answer so that we can share that information with the inquirer. A reminder will be sent in 8 days. The inquiry will be closed after 10 days. Questions about the inquiry can be directed to the CDC Info correspondence team by replying to this email. Please reference the inquiry number below and include the email thread line in your response. The thread line is the email chain including this email and the original email request. to include the thread line. Reply to this message without deleting the historical email chain. Okay, so that was that. So she escalated my question. And so someone did respond. They responded right away, actually. Okay, so Colleen Nugent forwarded their response to me. Okay, so she goes, hello, thank you for contacting us with your interest in NCHS birth data. So birth data comes from the National, I forget what the acronym stands for. I think it's the National Center for Health Statistics, birth data. They said, we consulted with the birth statistics team here in the reproductive statistics branch regarding your query and are copying their response to you below. In a nutshell, there is too much missing data. Do you all remember the video that I did when I was sitting in the car ranting and raving that there is not enough data on fatherhood statistics? And I did that video prior to even sending out any type of email to the CDC. I had sense enough to know that there was missing data. This is the CDC, National Center of Health Statistics, emailing me and telling me, confirming what I've always known, that there is data missing. But I'll read on. It says there's too much missing data on fathers, especially when the mother is unmarried, to produce reliable estimates. So if they do have a number, it is an estimate, people. They don't know. They go on to say, please let us know if you have further questions. Thanks, Colleen. So this is what they sent to Colleen. The reasons that this is a difficult task is that the information does not exist in the way that you and many others would like to have. There are several reasons for this. First, our information about birth comes from the birth certificate, and on the certificate, the information about the mother's marital status and the father comes from the mother. Didn't I say that in one of my very first videos? I said that. But this is just confirmation coming from the experts, the people that actually do this for a living, if you don't want to believe my words. So the email goes on. It says, mothers are asked to report the father's age, race, and Hispanic origin and education. Many mothers do not report this information. For all mothers who gave birth in 2015, 18% did not report the father's race. So we do not know what it is. They're saying they don't know. Among married women, there is a low level of missing information for this father information. But among unmarried mothers, it is considerably higher. And I can just imagine. Because if a married woman is not giving all the information, you can imagine what an unmarried woman is not giving as far as information about the father, especially if they're relying on the mother to give all the information. But I'll read on. The level of missing information also varies by race. For example, among married African American mothers, 86% reported that the married father was African American, and 4.5% reported no information on the father's race. So they get 86% of information reported by African American married women, and 4.5% of married African American women don't report any information about the father's race. Now, in comparison, among unmarried African American mothers, we can assume that the father is not married as well. They have that in parentheses. 45% reported no information on the father's race, and 51% reported that the father was African American. We do not know what the race of the 45% of fathers for whom information is missing. So now black men are running around saying 45% of men are not fathers, and that just isn't true. 45% of men they don't have the information on them. And this is coming straight from the horse's mouth. The challenge with your question is that our information is based on the mother, not the father. To answer your question, the percentage of the African American men who father children out of wedlock within a single year, you need information on number of African American men of a given age range for year X that is available. Although you have to decide a reasonable age range for fathers since they have a longer reproductive period than women, what is not available is the number of men of a specific race who fathered a child because of the high percentage of missing father information on the birth certificate. Adding marital status to this adds the difficulty because of the high percent of missing father information for unmarried mothers. And again, this is coming from the NCHSED branch of the CDC. And I received this on March 27th at 1:45 p.m. So they responded rather quickly and pretty much backed up everything I said in my previous videos. So going back to this PDF, okay, Brady from CDC said that this is the most current and accurate information that they have for fatherhood statistics for Black men. But this is over a decade. 66% of Black men are unwed father based off the information that they currently have. And this number could be higher because they currently have confirmation of this number, but there's missing data that they don't have to go with that. It could be even higher than this, people. And this is what I have been saying. So yes, Faith Jones is going to what? Bring the receipts, okay? So come for me if you want to. But those are real emails, and those are real people from the CDC. And I told you all, you don't just have to take my word for it. You can contact the CDC. They have a website where you can go on your computer and you can email them and ask them to send you information or to verify information. And they will get back to you. They do respond to your emails. They responded to mine, as you can clearly see. So, you know, Black men can no longer use their made-up statistics, the made-up 45%, the made-up 20%. It's all null and void. All right, so little word about Black women and welfare. I stumbled upon a really interesting study, or it was a paper written by Dorothy E. Roberts. And this is from the Yale Law Journal. And she's with an organization called racism.org. And this is where they're currently holding this paper that she wrote. But the paper is entitled Welfare and the Problem of Black Citizenship. And I'm not going to read this entire paper, but I just wanted to highlight a few things that Dorothy hit on here, because there was a lot of racist origins with Black women in the welfare system, okay? Because first of all, I know all of you know that Black women, you know, there was a point in time back in the 50s and the 60s where welfare was only for white women. Black women could not get welfare. We had to go out and work in order to take care of our families. Our men had to get out and work in order to take care of their families. So there was no such thing as welfare for Black people. If we had a toothache, we had to go to the underground doctor. We couldn't afford any type of anesthesia. We had to get our teeth pulled with no type of numbing of the gums or anything. You know, and that's what our people had to endure back in the days. There was no Medicaid for us. There was no type of health insurance. People were burying their loved ones in paper cardboard boxes some of the time, because there was no burial insurance for us. You know, we had it really bad. There was no welfare programs to be heard of. But going back to this paper is really interesting to just delve into the history of it, because it says here that black single mothers, on the other hand, were simply excluded. The first maternalist welfare legislation was intended for white mothers only. Administrators either failed to establish programs in locations with large black populations or distributed benefits according to standards that disqualified black mothers. As a result, in 1931, this went back even further than I thought. In 1931, the first national survey of mothers' pensions broken down by race found that only 3% of recipients were black. So they weren't giving us anything back in 1931. The exclusivity of mothers and aid programs coincided with the entrenchment of formal racial segregation, another progressive reform intended to strengthen social order. Social order for who? Social order for white people. And they wanted to maintain control over black people, and they wanted to make sure that we were poor enough to continue into the what? To continue into the labor market. They wanted us as laborers, so they were not going to give us anything free. And I just find it so fascinating. And here's another point in the paper that I wanted to point out. It says here, the perpetuation of racialized welfare system. The New Deal solidified welfare stratification along racial as well as gender lines. Northern New Dealers struck a bargain with Southern Democrats that systematically denied blacks eligibility for social insurance benefits. So we couldn't even get Social Security, people. Okay? There was a lot of things that were just withheld from us, and we worked hard to build this country. Core programs allowed states to define eligibility standards and excluded agricultural workers and domestic servants in deliberate effort to maintain a black menial labor caste in the South. Didn't I just say that they wanted us working? They wanted to make sure that we were working. Whites feared that Social Security would make both recipients and those freed from the burden of supporting dependents less willing to accept low wages. In addition, New Deal public programs blatantly discriminated against blacks, offering them the most menial jobs and paying them sometimes half of what white workers earned. Even aid to dependent children was created primarily for white mothers who what? They were not expected to work. Does anybody hear me? It says aid to dependent children was created primarily for white mothers who were not expected to work. So when they created aids to families with dependent children, it was for white women, and they did not have any programs at the time that like they have now that says, okay, you can't just sit up here on aid. You have to work. When white women were getting it, they didn't have any provisions for them to work. They were never expected to work. The only time that they started making provisions for welfare to work is when they started opening the welfare rolls to minorities, and in particular, black women. So not only did black women work prior to being eligible for welfare, but when they became eligible, they had to work. Black women have always had to work. So black women have never, ever been given anything. The relatively few black recipients received smaller stipends on the ground that blacks needed less to live on than whites. So not only did they discriminate against giving us the benefits, but when they did give black people the benefits, they were given less than white women because they felt that blacks needed less to live on. Isn't that something else? I wipe my ass the same way you wipe your ass, but I don't need as much toilet paper as you because evidently I don't get as much shit as you do. you know, there's something else. But what really kills me are the black people that sit on their high horses and they try to make people feel ashamed for having to depend on a system that they didn't even have a right to depend on, although they worked for it. When you fall on hard times, these systems are supposed to be there as a backup. So we had every right, just as these white women had a right to this system, and they withheld it from us. But if anyone is interested in reviewing this article, I am going to leave the links in the description box underneath this video. But this is from academic.udayton.edu. And it is a very interesting excerpt and well-written paper, by the way, very well-written. Now, as far as feminism is concerned, you know, my whole thing about the feminist movement is that black women were in a very tough position during the 1960s civil rights, black power movement. There were a bunch of movements. You had your civil rights movement, the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberalist movement, the Black Education Caucus. But I'm just going to put it under one umbrella and call it the Black Power movement. Okay? And there were plenty of black women who were involved in all of those movements and all of those programs. And we were not given the credit that we deserve. A lot of black women were not given leadership roles in any of those movements because we were being discriminated against by gender. It was a misogynistic male movement that focused mainly on black men's rights and their needs under the umbrella of black civil rights. And then there was the feminist movement, which was primarily constructed from white women. And black women were instrumental in helping with that movement as well. We supported both the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, and we supported the feminist movement. Now, a lot of black men, they act like they're brain dead. They act like they don't know why a black woman would support both the Black Power movement and the feminist movement. Well, duh, look at me. I am black, so I'm going to pump my fist for black power. But I'm also a female, and I would like to be treated equally and have rights as a woman and not be discriminated against because I'm a woman. So if you add the two together, you're black and female, you got a hell of a lot of discrimination going on. And during those movements, that's exactly what black women were facing. Black women were, I would say, big supporters of both movements, the Black Power movement and the feminist movement. We were big supporters of both of those movements equally because we had equal ties in both movements. So we didn't abandon one for the other. Black women were equally involved in both because we had a lot to gain from both. However, black women's needs were not looked at equally in both movements. And that's what I like to look at with this paper that I found. And this is a paper that was from the, this is from MIT.edu. And I'm not, once again, this is a long paper. If you're interested in reading this, you know, outside of this video, knock yourself out. I'm going to leave the link in the description box underneath this video. But basically, you know, it's saying the same thing that I'm saying, that the feminist movement grew out of and in response to the Black liberation movement and the women's movement and the women's movement. So it grew out of in response to the Black liberation movement and the women's movement. In an effort to meet the needs of black women who felt they were being racially oppressed in the women's movement, so we had to deal with racism among white women, and we were being sexually oppressed in the Black liberation movement. So we were being we were dealing with sexism within the Black liberation movement. So we were dealing with two different types of oppression from Black males and white females. Black women were caught in the middle. And as a result, Black women were an invisible group whose existence and needs were ignored in both groups. So Black men run around here talking about how Black women abandoned the Black liberation movement for the women's liberation movement, and that could have been further from the truth. Black women had to form their own movement in order for our needs to be heard. And it's really funny because the Black women's liberation movement was founded in 1973. So a whole decade later, Black women decided, okay, they're not hearing us. We're dealing with racism from white women. They're ignoring our issues over here. We're dealing with sexism from our own men. They're ignoring our issues over there. So we came up with the Black feminist movement in 1973 so that our issues could be heard. We were invisible during that time. And just to give you an example of, a couple of the leaders, because I'm not saying that all Black men during the Black liberation movement were sexist, but there were quite a few who were in leadership roles that made it unbearable for the women who were trying to move the movement forward to even be part of it. Here is an excerpt from two of the main leaders of those two movements, of the Black liberation movement. It says here, Black men in the movement were interested in controlling Black women's sexuality. Bell Hooks comments that during the Black liberation movement of the 1960s, Black men overemphasized white male sexual exploitation of Black womanhood as a way to explain their disapproval of interracial relationships. It was, however, no contradiction of their political views to have interracial relationships themselves. So they used the fact that white people used to rape Black women, so Black women shouldn't have interracial relationships with white men because they committed that crime against us back during slavery. However, when it came for the Black men to say no to interracial relationship, they did not impose that on themselves like they imposed it on Black women. As a matter of fact, even today, you'll see Black men defending interracial relationships by saying that white men raped their women, so they feel they have carte blanche to have other women. Like women are just objects. They're just tools. This is what Black men are running around saying. And I am an advocate for you fall in love with whoever you want to fall in love with. First and foremost, I love Black best, so I am always going to be for Black love. However, if you genuinely fall in love with a person of a different racial group because you've been exposed to that atmosphere or what have you, so be it. But for Black men to sit up here and actively seek out white women because they feel like they're entitled because of something that happened to their women, happened to us during slavery. That is bull hockey. Bullshit. Okay? And I'm going to go on to read. It says here, as well, there was disregard for the humanity and equality of Black women. Black men in the Black liberation movement often made sexist statements which were largely accepted without criticism. Consider these two statements, the first by Amiri Baraka and the second by Eldridge Cleaver. So here's a statement by Amiri Baraka. And so this separation of Black men and Black women is the cause of our need for self-consciousness and eventual healing. But we must erase the separateness by providing ourselves with healthy African identities. By embracing a value system that knows no separation, but only of the divine complement, the Black woman is for her man. For instance, we do not believe in equality of men and women. We cannot understand what the devils and the devilishly influenced mean when they say equality for women. We could never be equals. Nature has not provided thus. So basically, Amiri Baraka says that women are not equal to men. And this is the same attitude that black men carry with them to this day, which is why they don't see us as human beings, let alone equals. Baraka insists that men and women are unequal by nature. This is an attitude which he considers healthy and worthy of promotion to other black men and women. And oh, he promoted it well, because even to this day, black men are still utilizing this as their stepping stone. And there are women who are pushing this as well. Not only are men and women different, he says, but there is no reciprocity in their relationship to each other. Hence, a black man is not for his woman, as a black woman is for her man. The two do not submit to one another. Rather, the woman submits to her black man. That is a lopsided relationship. Now, here's a statement from the rapist, Eldridge Cleaver, black liberation activist. Rapist turned black liberation activist, Eldridge Cleaver. He goes, I became a rapist to refine my technique and modus operandi. I started out by practicing on black girls in the black ghetto where vicious and dark deeds appear not as aberrations, but deviations from the norm, but as part of the sufficiency of the evil of a day when I considered myself smooth enough, I crossed over the tracks and sought out white prey. So he openly admits to raping young black women. And he didn't think that raping the young black women was so bad because he felt that that was a normal day-to-day thing that black women had to deal with. And when he became confident enough, he crossed over to raping white women. This man is a sociopath. And yet black men, they revere him to this day. Cleaver later goes on to express his remorse at his action, but retains his misogynistic attitudes. One can see both sexism and racism at work in this citation. Not only is he committing violence against women, but he considers the violence against black girls to be less serious than that against their white counterparts. While it is true that a crime against a white woman bore more weight in the judicial system, and it still does today, you rape a white woman, you are going to do time. You rape a black woman, they're going to ask the black woman what she had on. And that did actually happen to me when I was in 7th grade. So I know this to be true. While it is true that a crime against a white woman bore more weight in the judicial system, the gravity of the crime, i.e. the damage it causes and the terror it invokes, both individually and within the community, is not diminished when committed against a black woman. Sexism, discrimination against women in the black liberation movement not only took the form of misogynistic writings, it was also a part of daily life. Elaine Brown recalls an organizational meeting of the Black Congress in which she and other women were forced to wait to eat until the men were served food, for which they had all contributed money. So there were rules for women and rules for men, further oppressing the women and putting them beneath them. Now, black women in the feminist movement, Black women in the feminist movement, I would have to say, we faced issues of racism rather than sexism because we were dealing with white women that did not think that they could be racist. They thought that because they were in an oppressed class as white women, that their men were oppressing them, that they could not be, there's no way that they could be oppressors because they were being oppressed. But it's a different type of oppression. Yes, white women were being oppressed by their men, but white women exercised their white, how can I say, privilege over black women. They often excluded black women from sitting in on certain types of meetings. They often propped up white middle class women as being, as their experiences being the normal woman experience in the United States, often ignoring the needs of black women. Black women's needs far outweighed the needs of white middle class women, and our needs were completely different than their needs. We were not only facing discrimination as women, but we were facing discrimination as black women. If we went on to a job to get a job as a secretary back then in the 50s, if a white woman wanted that job, that white woman was going to get that job whether she qualified for it or not. The black woman could have had all the skill in the world, but because she was black, she was not going to get the job. And that's also going towards education. If the woman is black, she's not going to be accepted into the college. So black women were being oppressed on two different ends, sexism and racism. So we ran to the feminist movement because our needs were not being heard in the black liberation movement. Our men were not trying to hear that we had certain particular needs that, we wanted them to focus on. They ignored us. So black men essentially pushed black women towards the women's liberation movement so that we can see if we could get our needs heard. And when we got over there, we found that we were being discriminated against over there. So let me just read a little excerpt about this movement from this paper. It says, part of the overwhelming frustration black women felt within the women's movement was at white feminists' unwillingness to admit their racism. This unwillingness comes from the sentiment that those who are oppressed cannot oppress others. I just said that. White women who were and still are without question sexually oppressed by white men believed that because of this oppression, they were unable to assume the dominant role in perpetuation of white racism. However, they have absorbed, supported, and advocated racist ideology and have acted individually as racist oppressors. Traditionally, women's sphere of influence has extended over the home. And it is no coincidence that in 1963, 7 times as many women of color, of whom 90% were black, as white women were employed as private household workers. It has been the tendency of white feminists to see men as the enemy rather than themselves, and part of the patriarchal, racist, and classist society in which we all live. Not only did some white feminists refuse to acknowledge their ability to oppress women of color, some claim that white women had always been anti-racist. Adrienne Rich claims our white four-sisters have often defied patriarchy, not on their own behalf, but for the sake of black men, women, and children. We have a strong anti-racist feminist tradition. However, as Bell Hooks points out, theirs is a little historical evidence to document Rich's assertion that white women as a collective group of white women's rights advocates are part of an anti-racist tradition. Every women's movement in the United States has been built on a racist foundation. Women's suffrage for white women, the abolition of slavery for the fortification of white society, the temperance movement for the moral uplifting of white society. None of these movements were for black liberation or racial equality. Rather, they sprang from the desire to strengthen white society's morals or to uplift the place of white women in that society. And what that did, it ignored the needs of black women. So what did black women have to do? Black women were put in a position where our needs were being ignored during the Black liberation movement, because everything that black men during that time were fighting for were things that benefited black men only. And black women's needs were not being heard during the white feminist movement, because everything that that movement was fighting for was to benefit white women only. So this is why the birth of the black feminist movement had to happen, because black women were an invisible group within both movements. Now, there are 5 myths that a lot of black men bring up when talking about the black feminist movement. First, they bring up that the black woman was already liberated. Okay, well, this myth illustrates long-held misconceptions about black women, including the belief that the extraordinary strength of black women have shown in the face of tremendous oppression reveals that their liberation, in fact, this freedom working outside the home, supporting the family economically as well as emotionally, and hitting the household, has been thrust upon black women. So black women did not ask to be free to work. Black women had to work because of racist laws that prohibited their men a lot of times from getting jobs. So the argument that black women were already liberated, no, that's bull crap. Bull crap. Black women were forced. It was thrust upon us to have to take the leadership in the household from day one. Black women always had to work and toil for their family. There was no rest for the black woman, none whatsoever. So if I see a black woman sitting at home on her ass and her man going out working for her, I say good for her, because we've had to work our asses off all throughout history. White women, they were afforded the right to sit at home on their ass, and their men went out and worked for them. And they were not thankful, they complained. Black women never, from slavery on, we went from being slaves to going out into the workforce. We never got a chance to sit down. Never. And when we finally got a little bit of assistance from public aid programs, we still didn't get a chance to sit down, because they made sure they enacted laws that made women have to get out and work for those checks. So black women never got cut a break. Never. And this is the reason why I'm going through the history. I'm going through the history of both the welfare, and I'm going through the history of the women's liberation movement, and why the black feminist movement had to happen. On both sides, black women's needs were being ignored. Black women had to deal with poverty. Black women had to deal with the color of our skin, being discriminated against because of the color of our skin. Black women had to deal with sexism within her own community from her men that did not feel that we were equal. We had to go out and work just like our men had to go out and work, but our men still didn't think that we were equal to them. Can you imagine you're out working long hours, just as many hours as your man, and you come home and your man wants you to submit to him and cater to his every need, as if you haven't had to go out and toil just like he did? White women, their men went out and worked, but they were at home all day long sitting on their ass. So when their men came home and they wanted some TLC and submission, They had better give that man TLC and submission because they haven't been doing anything all day. But black women, tired from working and toiling all day, had to come home, tend to the children, cook food, and tend to the needs of her man. Black women had 3 jobs. And it just kills me that black men ignore that part of our history. It seems to me that they are jealous of our strength. And the thanks that we get for it are the men that we have out here today. These ungrateful, no account, bastard baby making, leaving their women to live in poverty, assholes that we have today. That's the thanks that black women get for their hard work and loyalty. So if black women seem angry, if we seem a little out of sorts, it's because we have every right to be. Bitter, we have every right to be. You know, sometimes when people throw out these labels, they don't bother to look behind the reason why that person is feeling that way. They're just going to say, oh, you're just bitter. No, the person isn't just bitter. There was a long road that person traveled to get to that bitter point. And sometimes there's a thing called justified indignation. And black women are justifiably angry and justifiably disappointed in our men. You know, when those 12 girls went missing in DC, who but black men took to the internet, just typing, making sure that they were seen, saying, oh, black women wanted to be independent. And now that they're independent, they need us now. They need us now. They want us to help them. What has a woman wanting to be independent have to do with girls going missing? These black girls could be being sold into sex slave. Their organs can be being harvested. We don't know what's going on with these 12 girls. But black men are actually getting online talking about black women wanting to be independent, and so we deserve whatever we get. Do you know white women also fought for independence, but you don't see white men going online. When something happens to one white woman, white men will form a nationwide search just for the one missing white woman. They don't care about them wanting to be independent. They don't care about any of that because they're their women and they're going to protect their women. But a lot of the black men that I've seen, very disappointingly, I mean, so many brothers. That's the reason why I didn't really do a video about the girls in DC, because I was going to go off on these punk ass men that went online in troves talking about they get what they deserve because they want to be independent. You can't see that a woman has a right to want to be independent, and you can't separate that from a crime that's being committed against your women. Black men, you are the cowards of this nation. I'm just going to put it out there. You are the cowards of this nation. Now, inevitably, some cowardly, super sensitive black male is going to run into my chat room and go, oh, this is hate speech against black men. No, see, hate speech is when you're calling some type of harm to a protected group. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying death to all black men like black men have gotten online and said death to all black women. Black men have gotten online and told other black men not to take care of their children if they're on child support, to just walk away from their children. Black men have done that. I'm not doing that. But what I am doing is I am calling you to think about your actions, black men. I'm calling you to return to your proper role as provider and protector. And I am challenging you to compare yourself to other men and not compare yourself to your women as you have been doing for the last 3 decades and not building anything and not progressing. We have not progressed since they bombed Black Wall Street. We've regressed and we're completely going backwards. Our birth rates are low. We're not replacing ourselves like we used to. Black women are turned completely off, and other women are beginning to follow suit as everyone begins to open their eyes to the sins of the Black male. And it's about time. It is about time, because you are being exposed. And it's not anything that Black women are doing to you. Actually, Black women have just begun to speak out. You've done it to yourselves. When other groups go out and they do these statistics, they see your bullshit. They see that you leave bastard babies everywhere you go, no matter what race of women you deal with. They see it. They see that you do not protect your women. They see it. And you all think you're being clever. You all think that you're doing something big and grand, but you're really making yourselves look weak and ignorant. And it makes me sad. I don't like to see that. I don't like for my men to look like the asses of the world. But that's exactly what you're doing. But anyway, I just wanted to touch on those things and just, put something on your mind, something for you to chew on, something for you to just think over before you run into another forum or another group attacking your own women. My videos are not to hate on Black men. Once again, I love all my people, Black men and Black women, because I am a Black woman and I love Black best. But some people are under the false impression that love means that you're going to sugarcoat and say things that make people feel good all the time. I'm not here to sugarcoat nothing for no goddamn grown motherfuckers. Yeah, I said motherfucker. Shoot me. Yeah, you're grown. If you can't process this information, something's wrong with you. I'm not out here hating on anybody. I'm not out here calling you out your name, even though you deserve to be called out your name for the treason that you have committed against your entire people, Black men, and you have committed many treasonous acts. You're being called out for your bullshit. Deal with it. More videos to come. This is Faith Jones. Please like, share, and definitely subscribe. Have a good one.